companies. Am I understandable?
Yes.
Keep the mic, keep it very close.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. If there's any feedback, please let me know. Okay, this is a bit of a surprise. I will do this off the cuff, but I think there were a lot of interesting aspects. I want to address some. In Germany, we, supply chain-wise, also seen the implementation of the new law beginning as of 1st of January this year. Companies of size larger than 1,000 employees. Companies of a size of more than 1,000 employees are subject to specific measures, regulations having to be taken. This, of course, edges into what I do professionally. I advise companies on labor and employment law, employment relations, and all these things. And we've seen quite some developments. I would say generally German law was well prepared to deal with ESG regulations and mandatory issues. We have a level of co-determination in operations of plants in Germany, which an American colleague asked me if we were a socialist country. We're not, but sometimes you have the impression. And a lot of the cooperation which is required between the labor relation parties, the employees, employee representations, and others are natural to German employment law. But we do see a lot of problems, and one problem is, of course, working time. Irrespective of the branches, I would have a word on construction, maybe finalizing what I want to say today. Working time is something provided for by public law, by administrative law in Germany. It's a protective law, always was. It's a health and safety issue. Again, people in Germany work very hard, and a lot of overtime is registered, and some of it isn't. And it was also something I think Germans took pride in for many years. It's becoming a health issue, and it used to be dealt with rather not vigorously by the authorities. Penalties were low, and we're seeing that change quite a bit. The national legislation on violations of working time maximums has changed significantly as of July this year, and we see a problem, not of companies not wanting to comply with working time regulations, but we don't have enough workforce, qualified personnel, and there's a lot of work to do. So the impact will be that German productivity will decrease, owing to the fact that working time legislation is more monitored, is more subject to penalties if violations are detected, and simply for the fact that there are no employees to do the jobs. And of course, you've seen our political tendencies in the last few weeks and months, which is not exactly attractive to foreigners and to migrants coming to Germany to work, to make a living, to live with us. And this is going to be a real threat to our economy if we can't find changes. So what is peculiar about this is that our Federal Labor Court took a ruling in September 22 already. And we are very looking into European legislation and European rulings. And the Senate said, the Senate of the Federal Labor Court in charge of this topic said, well, we haven't seen movement in administration, we haven't seen movement in law, so I'm now implementing European law as mandatory by means of work and health and safety. So they used a paragraph which nobody, I swear no German employment lawyer would have said that is in there, would say, but this is mandatory for people to have a system of registering working time and proving it for each minute. And this was, of course, it was an uproar. There was a lot of discussions, and our labor secretary of labor moved, or tried to move 6 months later, in order to pass an adjusted legislation for working time act. There was something which was leaked. Everybody was discussing it. It was not really good, and since then we are waiting for an adjustment in our working time act. And it's not really helpful because it just pins back the problem to the authorities, who are now visiting companies on initiatives and checking whether there is sufficient documentation and imposing sanctions. And this is not really heading forward. We're looking for political change, probably going to happen next year. Probably more to the other direction. I hope it's not going to be a radical direction. I think it's pretty safe, and we're working at that. But this is something where ESG is also a threat, not because people don't want to implement it. It's costly, but we don't have the workforce to do the work, actually. And it is a European problem because you can see clients and companies trying to go more into remote work, European work, trying to make use of whatever European freedom there is. But that also triggers really interesting topics on tax, on social security, etc. It's interesting for us on a consultancy side, but it does make things a lot easier. It's costly, it's expensive, and we're moving way too slow. So I would say, yes, ESG is a mindset. I think it's the only way forward we may have. And it's going to be a hard time. We would need to adjust legislation. So what our American colleague just said, in Florida, in the pensions, it's about the return. The pensioners want money, and if you spend that money, it's not going to generate that return. Of course, there's a dilemma to be solved, and we have similar dilemmas in separate fields of law. Word on construction, we have a similar topic with construction law. We would say, yeah, there is abuse in construction sites. There is illegal work. We've seen something this year, also in France, heat-related issues on construction sites, people dying because they're dehydrated, nobody's taking care of that. Of course, it's an ESG issue. It marks that there is no preventive measures taken, and of course, this is being followed up and sanctioned. But you would see, ironically, that ESG itself is being triggered by climate change in certain businesses. And yes, on the construction side, we have our customs with a very tough regime on checking construction sites and checking the validity of employment conditions, and illegal work. So that's pretty much covered, and I guess they're pretty rigid also in implementing that. Whenever a client calls us with similar problems, we will tell them what to do. They're so really only complying with the law and with customs. So we have a rigid system there. So I think we're well protected from the worst. The Italian case is really horrific. Yes, thank you. That would be everything I can do off the cuff. If there's any questions.
Thank you very much. For the German